Hello, hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to View from Love. I am your host, Allie Ray, and I'm so thrilled to have you on this podcast journey of extraordinary love. We have our amazing guest from South Africa today. Colin Joe Byrne is well known for his writings on the soul. He is an author of three books: Forgotten Human Potential, Soul Evolution, and the Multidimensional Universe. He's an author, a teacher, and a mentor. And I am just delighted to have him here today to share more about the miraculous journey of the soul and his insight into the particular evolution of humanity at this time. So, welcome, Colin Joe Byrne. Welcome to View from Love.
Well,
So
thank
lovely
you
to
so
have
much.
you.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's good to be with you and with all your viewers. And I'm really grateful for this opportunity because I do believe that what we need is a moral regeneration at this time, in our world. And hopefully I can contribute towards that.
Yes, spreading the love, right? Spreading the love. So,
Yeah.
Colin, I know that many of our viewers may be very new to you and to your work. So, would you mind giving us a little bit of background?
Yeah, sure. As you said, I'm South African. I was brought up in an Irish Catholic family of six children. I was the youngest of the six. I was born in 1950, so that makes me 72 years old. And I had an extraordinary journey in life, experienced many things, and I, in my early part of my life, um, I felt I was quite a spiritual person, and being an Irish in an Irish Catholic home, of course, we had a lot of the Irish Catholic kind of rituals, like we had a little altar in the home, and we used to say the rosary every night with the family, uh, uh, and I was given tasks like doing the crib, the annual sort of crib for Jesus, and at Christmas time, and my mother had sort of because it was a tradition in our family that one of the children would be, dedicated to the service of the church. So I was kind of designated as the priest in the family and forced to take Latin at high school, which I really hated, and then I gave it up uh, in grade 10. Yeah, so I had a spiritual background, and then to the horror of my family in 2000 in 1919, at the age of 19, I converted to Protestant. I became a Protestant, sorry, uh, and I I remember walking into the family home, and my mother looked in horror at my what I was holding in my hand. It was the Bible, and I had just bought myself a Bible, and this was anathema in our home because nobody was supposed to read the Bible because the church, forbade Catholics to read the Bible. So yeah, I was really indoctrinated with a lot of the Roman Catholic catechism and so on. But I think inside of me there was always been this rebel who wanted to know more than what was being presented to me. So yeah, then I became a Protestant, and went to church and went to Bible college for a year and studied the Bible, and then I spent the next 20 years in a evangelical Christian church, and then later became part of you know the happy clappies, and if I could call them that. Yeah, and I was living quite a nice life, and I was an international banker at that stage of my life, and living some time in London and traveling between London and Johannesburg. And on one of my trips back from London, I did a stopover in Israel, because I'd heard about the Promised Land, and I had been there before, but there were some parts of it that I'd never seen, so I wanted to go and check those out. So I went down to Nazareth, which is, they call it Lake Kinneret, but it's the Sea of Galilee, and on that site there's a little church there called the Church of the Loaves and Fishes. And I was sitting there in prayer and meditation, and then I had this vision of the scribes and Pharisees surrounding Jesus, and they were accusing him of all the things that he was doing, eating food on the Sabbath, and leading his disciples astray, and so on and so. And they were very vehement, and they were angry. And Jesus just looked at them and said, "Oh, you scribes and Pharisees, you a generation of vipers. You have a form of, you like whited sepulchres. You have a form of religion, but you deny the power thereof." And that had a very, and as I sat and watched that, I thought, what is happening? And then I meditated on that, and when I got back to South Africa, I said to my wife at the time, listen, I've had this sort of vision, and I want to look more into it. And then as I did, I began to get this feeling that the problem with our religion is that it's a religion of separation, and separation separates people. And so when I started reading about it, Einstein's unified field theory and stuff like that, and I started to get into the physics of it, quantum mechanics and quantum physics. And I began to realize that there was something wrong about religion. So I made a choice not to attend church. At the time, I was an elder of the church. I was a teacher in the Sunday school. I was part of their gospel band. I played bass guitar in the gospel band. So I was really inculcated into religion and Bible studies, 3 or 4 times a week, leading groups and so on. And then I said, well, I've come to the end of this. I went to the pastor and I said to him, look, there's one thing that I've realized is that God and man cannot be separated from each other. And of course, that was against all their beliefs and systems, because they believed that because man and God is separated, Jesus came to die for our sins and so on. They gave me all this doctrine, but I just said, sorry, I just can't believe that a creator would create something and then be separate from it. And of course, that created great consternation in the church, and my friends and family and people that I knew well as Christians, and so I was then excommunicated from the church, and I attended my own excommunication, and I decided, well, that's it, I'm done with the church, I'm getting out of this place. And when I walked out after the excommunication, I stamped my feet on the ground as if to say, I'm done with you. And of course, that created havoc in my family, and my wife was very unhappy because, she was very much into the church. She was deaconess, and, attended women's groups, and book clubs and that sort of thing, and she had this rebellious man on her hands. But I suppose at the time I was also going through a bit of a midlife crisis, you know, so I was then 39, 40, and this just world just didn't make any sense to me anymore. So I, I, I remember I left my wife, and I remember going. I went to live with my brother, and I remember standing on my bed one night, one evening, after I'd left her, and I put my middle finger and you know, figuratively stuck it up the devil's nose. And I said, if you out there, come and get me. Because if you're out there, I'm coming to get you. So I was pretty defiant about, you know, the religion, you know, Satanism that happened, because when I was younger, I had a friend who got involved in Satanism, and he told me about it, and I was horrified that there were Satanists on this planet, and what they did. You know, he attended all kinds of rituals that he told me about, and he tried to leave Satanism when one night they brought a baby into the ritual, and they killed the baby and they drank the baby's blood. And so he had come to me to seek some kind of spiritual solace, I suppose, and to confess. So I just listened to his story, but 3 weeks later he was dead, because they had told him, you cannot leave Satanism. Once you're in, you're in. You're gonna, otherwise you're gonna die. And sure enough, 3 weeks later he was dead. And so I was aware of all of that, and this whole notion of good and bad, and God and the devil, and so I kind of rebelled and went off into a very rebellious lifestyle. I started to drink very heavily, womanize, you know, taking drugs and partying, and I entered into a totally different lifestyle from what I'd been involved in before. But I was, in a sense, I was quite happy with that, because I knew that I had this, you know, intrinsic faith within me that my path would be directed in some way. And then in 2003, I was 53 then. I had a girlfriend who lived nearby, and I went to visit her. She was a Reiki master, and I'd just met her. And so she said to me one day, one Saturday morning, I was staying there for the weekend, she said, let's go outside and read a book. Sit in the sun and read a book and sip our wine. And I went, oh, okay, let's do that. So I looked through a bookcase, and I couldn't see any books that I could really relate to, because you know, I wasn't into the stuff that she was into. But she chose a book for me, and she chose a book called Illusions by Richard Bach. And so we went outside, and we were sitting, you know, just reading, and suddenly this book kind of exploded. You know, just the pages just lit out into the air. And we started laughing, because we've been talking about book bindings earlier and how amazing they are. And then she said to me, well, the universe is trying to tell you something. So go back, put the book together again, and go back to what you were reading about. And so I put the book back together, went back to where I was reading, and it was a part in the book where the one guy in the book is son of the hero of the book, takes another guy into a movie to show he's teaching this other guy about reality. And he takes him to a theater, and they watch a movie, and when they come out, he says, that's what life is like. It's like a movie. And, you know, at that stage of my life, I said, that's crazy. This can't be like a movie, you know. I just don't understand it. And I said, you know, we're real. I pinched her, pinched myself. I said, we're real. This is not a movie. And then the following week, I was with a friend to a travel agency, and she had it in the mall, and I was sitting there chatting to her, and a friend of hers came in and said, "Oh, you must read this book. It's called The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot." And then she started telling my friend about the book, and she said, and in this book he describes that the world is like a hologram, and it's like a movie. And that got my attention a bit, because I had just got this message over the weekend that, the world is like a movie. And so I went out and synchronistically, as I was leaving my friend's travel agency, I was walking through the mall, and I looked into the window of a bookstore, and sure enough, there was a big display of a book called The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot. So I thought, okay, let me go buy this book and see what's in there. So I went and bought the book and started reading it, and I still couldn't figure it out, and I didn't really understand it very much. And then the following, just a week or two, 10 days later, I was in the same friend's shop, and she said, "Oh, yeah, I've just read this book. It's called The Field by Lynn Mctaggart." And she said, "You must read it." She started telling my friend about this book, and I thought, the field, unified field? Is there a field, really? So I went to the same bookstore, bought the book, and started reading it. And so now the universe has got my attention.
3 books in. 3 books in. Okay, you got my attention now. Yeah.
And then one day I was in with my girlfriend's, I was having a shower, and I heard this kind of rumbling sound in my head. And it wasn't audible, but I could hear it. And I shouted out, I said, "What's that noise?" And she was in another part of the house and hadn't even heard me. So I got out of the shower, looked around to see what was making that rumbling sound, and then got back in and started showering. And then this noise started happening again. And as I was listening to this noise, I thought, okay, well, maybe the universe is trying to communicate with me. So I said, okay, who are you? What are you doing here? And what do you want? And this sound came into my house, into my head. "I am Agrio." And then I said, where do you come from? And he said, "I'm from the 11th dimension." And I said, "Well, what do you want from me?" And he said, "I'm going to send you someone to teach you." He spoke very slowly with a rumbling sound, and I asked him why, and he said because he had to downstep his frequencies so that he could be audible in the density, the first dimensions 1, 2, and 3. But he didn't explain that to me, but I learned that later on why it happened that way. And then it was about 2 weeks later, I was in bed with my girlfriend, and I have felt this presence at the foot of my bed, and I couldn't bring myself to turn my head to have a look for a while. And then eventually I kind of looked over the duvet, and I saw this being standing at the foot of my bed. And I literally had a hard time just controlling my bowels and my bladder, because I was really, really frightened. It scared the hell out of me. So I ducked under the duvet and was lying there shaking and shivering. And then eventually I got the courage to have another look, and there was nothing there. So I woke my girlfriend up, and told her what had happened. And she said, "Well, you told me that Agriel was going to send someone to teach you. Maybe that's the person who's come to teach you." And I thought about it, I thought, well, does he have to be so big? Because it scared the hell out of me. But yeah, so she said next time he appears, don't hide away. Just face it. Face your fears. Face this difficulty because you want to know the truth, don't you? And I said, yes, I do. And she said, well, if you don't face it, you're not going to find it out. So it was a short while later, I felt the same. I was at home alone and I felt the same presence at the end of my bed. And I looked up, and sure enough, there was this being at the end of my bed. He had a kind of a monk's cowl on that covered his face. It was very big. It was almost as high as the ceiling. And we just looked at each other. He looked at me and I looked at him. We didn't know I didn't know what to do and then he began to telepath with me, and it was the first real understanding of what telepathy is. And his words were not English, but the sounds I heard sounded like English, if I can put it that way. Okay, so it wasn't English, but it sounded like English in my brain. And so I said, who are you? And he said, I am Maha. I've come to teach you. So, I thought, well, I'm facing my fears, I'm facing the truth, let me do this. And so we had a short conversation, and he said that he had come to teach me secrets of the universe. And I had no understanding of what that was, but I agreed. I said, okay, because I knew that he wanted me to get my agreement to go through this experience. So I agreed, and I said, well, I'm very grateful for you for giving me this opportunity and this experience, so I'm willing to do it. So he said to me that he would come back to me, but he would come back to me in dream state because he could see that I was terrified of him because he was so big. So then I started having these dreams where, this being Maha would appear in my dream and take me off into the ether and have various visitations and, see things like the wave fields. The first thing he showed me what he called the wave fields, and called the waves of light and sound. And he showed me that the ether is just filled with waves of light and sound of different colors, frequencies, amplitudes. So in my first experience, we were going through the wave fields, and he was showing me the wave fields. And as two waves crossed over each other, they sparked. And when I looked into the spark, I saw me and my life pass like a flash. And afterwards I asked him about that, and he said, well, that's what happened. He says, you have an illusion of time and space. There is no time and there is no space. All time is simultaneous and all space is in the same field. The only thing that exists are the wave fields. And so I had to put my head around this and started learning about how sound waves work, how light waves work, how these sound waves manifest in our reality field. And then I went through a process of learning where he taught me about the mechanics of creation, about the universal design template on which all manifestation becomes manifest. So I went through a very intense period of about 3 years of learning and being taught. But at the same time, all my life I've always been very curious, and I've always asked a lot of questions. And so I asked enormous amount of questions, and I always found that my questions were answered, but not always in the way that I thought they would be. So that it was not always a direct answer. The answer would be given to me through being directed to a book or a person, or to a movie, or to just many different circumstances. And then I started piecing together all this information. And then in 2006, after 3 years of going through this learning, I was told by Maha that he was going to take me on a journey to meet my mentor. Okay. And I didn't know who that was or what that was really, but he said that would be the last that I would see of him. So we went up on this journey, and we entered into a space where I looked around. There was just all this mist around me, and I couldn't see anything except Maha. And we stood there, and I thanked him for his service, and he said he had to go, so I thanked him for his service, and was really sad to see him go, because he taught me so many amazing things.
Yeah, you developed such a relationship. It was like being with a dear brother.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but sorry, but the next experience turned out to be even better. Sorry. I'm sorry, I just remembered that experience, and it.
I honor that love, Colin, because that came through in your sharing, that, he was very critical in assisting you and loving you through the fear, stepping outside of your previous human experience, and really opening you up and opening your being and your heart to what's real. And that's so
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah, because people have talked about this pandemic as being a great disease, but I think the biggest disease in this planet is cognitive dissonance. And I was a victim of cognitive dissonance for many years. And as you say, when you face the truth, when you have the courage to face it, it blows your mind. It really does. It blew my mind. And so yeah, then he left me, and in this mist, and as the mist began to clear, I just became aware of someone else in the mist, because these beings, they resonate at such a high frequency that even when they're not visible, you can sense them, you know. So as the mist cleared, I saw this being. It was another large being. It was about 10 foot tall, and he had blue skin, and blue feathers on his head. And I'd read about the blue avians, prior to this, and suddenly there he was. So it was quite an amazing experience to have. Yeah. And so I asked him who he was, and he said that he is me, but in another space-time continuum. And I had no idea what he was talking about. Um, so I thought, well, I've got come this far. Let's see what happens. And so I kind of jumped in, and he explained to me that, because I asked him, I said, oh, is this Sirius B? Because that's where the blue avians come from. And he said, well, you understand planets out there because that's part of your holographic experience. But you are actually creating the planets that you see out there through your soul body. The soul body has certain soul codes, and you've had a long period of soul evolution, and you were assisted many times in many different space-time continuums by beings from other stars. So that memory is still within you, and so you are creating those planets that you see. You see the sun. He said all those planets are sentient beings. All those stars are sentient beings that you've met on your soul journey. They've contributed towards your DNA, towards your soul codes. Excuse me. And yeah, so and when he told me that he was me in a different space-time continuum, I asked him to explain what he meant by that, you know. And he said that he was me who incarnated on Earth to bring the message that I'm bringing on Earth. But so I said, how could I be in two places at the same time? And he explained how bilocation works. He explained the timelines, you know, that we have 12 timelines of potential, 12 timelines of probability. For each timeline of potential, there are 12 timelines of probability. For each timeline of probability, there are 12 timelines of possibility. And that we navigate through those timelines with our consciousness. And that our consciousness travels, not us. Wherever our consciousness goes, it takes our body with us, because our souls hold the blueprint of the physicality that we have. So soul codes are like our DNA in our bodies. Our soul codes represent the many genetic and family lifetimes we've had, an experience that we had through many different species. We haven't always been human. We hold the soul codes of many of the species that we see. If we didn't hold the soul codes, we couldn't see them. And so I began to learn about time, space, and timelines, and understood that we are actually, there are 1,728 versions of ourselves in different timelines. So it's the stuff I was learning was really mind-blowing. And that was in about April 2006. And when I came back from that experience, I went through a severe period that I call the dark night of the soul, because my mind was so blown by all this information that I had to make a choice, because I was living a life which was, pretty ordinary for everyone else, but now I was having all these crazy experiences, and I really didn't know how to handle it, because I tried talking to people about them, but they thought, you're going crazy, pal. You've
Right.
lost it.
They could go with you on the journey about the books and feel okay there, but beyond that, they just couldn't. They didn't have the
Yeah.
capacity. Yeah.
So I felt pretty alone out there. But having said that, I had daily contact with and instant contact with my higher self, and asked a lot of questions, and he really helped me and guided me through this period, because I had a real crisis of consciousness, of conscience, where I thought, if I go down this path, it's going to make certain demands of me, and I don't know if I can live up to those demands, because we're all human,
Yeah.
and it's very difficult to imagine a universe out there which is in there.
Yes.
That's the irony of it. We think the universe is out there, but the universe is in there. And there are many layers and many dimensions to that construct that the universe has. So during that, it was about a 3-month period that I went through the dark night of the soul. And I had to really make a choice whether to endorse this information. Do I go with it? Do I live it? Or do I say, well, thank you very much. That was a crazy experience because, I'd been into drugs and I thought maybe in the beginning I just thought I was having a trip, like,
Just an extended one.
yeah. And or do I go back and live the life that I was living before? And then in my dream one night, I met my higher self, and then he took me back to the space we call Sirius B, but it's not, it's a different space-time continuum. And I met a lot of beings there that they showed me how their society works. They told me about their history. They told me about the history of the planet Earth, how it was once part of another planet called Tara in the Lyran constellation. They told me about the history of the fallen angelics and how they'd come to take over the planet Earth. There were many people, and it's a 564 billion year history, so you can't absorb all of it because there's just so many people, so many characters, so many star systems, so many, universes even involved. It's not just our universe. There are many layers of universe so.
So, Colin, during this time, were you doing any writing? Were you feeling called that this was going to be information that, no, you were just experiencing it?
Yeah, no, I didn't write anything because I thought, because I was talking to some of my friends, some very close friends, and they all thought I was going nuts. They said to me, you losing it, pal. Come back to normal.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of pressure on me from girlfriends and other friends, and because it's well liked and had a good bunch of friends, and was very sociable.
Were you still working in banking at that time?
No, I'd left banking in just after I got divorced. I decided to leave banking because I found it was becoming an industry that I didn't approve of any longer, because I'd got a document brought to me called the Development of Derivatives and the Derivative Market. And after I read that document, I realized that banks are going to become like casinos, betting on a stock, betting on interest rates, currencies, creating options to buy, sell, and these various mechanisms they were developing, all for the purpose, they said, of hedging people's risk.
Mm-hmm.
Which sounded very nice, but when I looked at it, I thought, no, what this really is, it's like a casino. You're going to get people to bet on things they don't really understand, and you have that information, so you're going to make sure that you win and they lose. And that's what's happened. And the derivatives market now is frighteningly big. It's up to $231 trillion, the recent figures I saw. So I decided to get out of banking and just pursue just a normal life, and I started a bar, and then I went into selling containers, and then I went into selling ships, and then I went and I worked for a time for the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, in the Desmond Tutu Peace Trust, and I was tasked to create a design brief for a peace center they wanted to open. So I spent 5 years preparing that design brief, and then when it was done, I left Desmond Tutu, but that coincided with a time that in 2006 where I was meeting my higher self. And in my second visit to my higher, with my higher self, he explained to me, they taught me about the Earth's grid lines, and how the Earth grid lines had been shattered by the fallen ones, bringing in a false moon into our atmosphere, and it collided with Earth and tilted Earth at 23.4 degrees to its normal. So the Earth's magnetic fields and its rotational alignment, the rotational alignment was out of alignment with the magnetic field, and this caused an energy wobble on the planet. But this was together with a lot of other things that the fallen ones had did, like they had done the same thing to a planet called Malbec, and they blew that up, and then that set off its neighboring planet Nibiru, which is 33 times bigger than Earth, off into another trajectory, and it's now it's now being pulled into the rotational system of the Earth's twin sun called Nemesis. It's a red dwarf star, and so Nibiru comes back into the Earth plane every 6,300 odd years. And if you look at some of the catastrophic events that have happened on the Earth, the Ice Age, the floods, and so on, it's about every 6,300 years. So when Nibiru was set off on its the plane around Nemesis, it drew a lot of the debris from Malbec, which and that debris eventually became what is known as the asteroid belt. But it drew a lot of that debris with it into space. So every time it comes back, it brings back that debris into our solar plane.
Where are we in that timeline now, Colin?
Yeah. It's due back after 2045, and so that's why this ascension process that we're going through is so important at this time, and it's important for mankind to rise up and become their angelic selves. People don't understand the power that they hold within their soul bodies, because what people normally relate to is their physical reality and the things that are out there, and people don't spend enough time listening to what's in there. And if you go within, and I've learned how to do that. All the secrets of the universe are within you, if you prepare to listen. But the thing is, it's not the normal stuff that you'll get from the indoctrination that happens and the propaganda that happens there. It's absolute perfect truth. The truth of who you are and what you represent and where you're going and where you come from. But as I said earlier, that the biggest problem that we face on this planet now is cognitive dissonance, where people are only comfortable with a certain information that supports the narrative that they're bought into. If anybody brings in a different narrative, they find that very difficult to adhere to. So yeah, the people are going to have to overcome this cognitive dissonance, but we're being assisted by our soul family out there, and if when you meet your soul family, I know who my soul family is, and I've met many members of my soul family in other space-time continuum. They are such wonderful people. They are just amazing beings, you know. They're so full of love and caring, and the way they conduct themselves, the respect they have for everything and everybody, and you know, the entire consciousness is so different from what we experience here on this planet. So in 2006, on my second trip to Sirius B, they asked me if I would volunteer to become a grid worker on the planet and do grid work, because they explained how the grids had been affected on Earth, and they explained to me how the grids work, how stargates work, how Q sites work, where they are, what they do, and how they align together in certain angles and ways that follow certain physics, the laws of physics. And so I had to sort of confront all this stuff as well. But when they told me about the ascension cycle that it started in 2006, was the start of what they called the stellar activation cycle, where the energies from the central sun would begin to penetrate through our galaxy and into our star system. And you know, as I'd learned that when this energy, it comes in the form of waves, light and sound waves, and light carries information, like in a fiber optic cable. Light is capable of carrying information, and all this light coming in is carrying information. So we've been assisted at this time not only by our soul family but by the entire universe, because this is the system. There is a cycle in life, and it's called the cosmic cycle, and we're in that part of the cosmic cycle that is called an ascension cycle. So it started with the stellar activation in 2006, and it progressed to 2012, when the stargates and the Q sites were supposed to be activated, but they couldn't be activated because they were held by the fallen ones here, and many of them had been damaged, so they couldn't be the normal cycle. So they told me that what they were going to do, that the Earth, the sentient soul being of Earth, is due for an ascension. So what they wanted to do is, the first time it's ever been done in our universe, is they were going to try to ascend all the people of Earth together with the Earth into a higher dimension. But there were certain rules and certain things that have to happen in order for that to take place. And in 2014, I was told that our grid work had been successful, that because it wasn't just me doing grid work, there were 144 of us doing the grid work on the planet, all looking after certain stargates and ley lines and Q sites. You know, so yeah,
So that was successful in 2014. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they told me, so I said, well, what do you want me to do now? So they said, we want you to go tell everyone how it works.
Is that when you
But
started writing, Colin, or getting online?
that's when I started writing. But it was a very daunting task for me at that stage, because to do grid work you have to cloister yourself and isolate yourself from all electromagnetic fields, and you know, you become very sensitive to energy. Like I can hear electricity flowing in electric power lines, and I can feel energy around me. And when you become that energy sensitive, you realize that you have to stay away from all this electromagnetism and toxic people as well, because toxic people around you can also affect your consciousness. So I kind of lived a cloistered and isolated life. I started installing wallpaper quite by accident, and made it. That's how I kept myself, paid my way. Um,
And you were
and
going
then,
out to locations on the earth and
yeah,
doing the grid work.
yeah, I was going into people's homes, putting up their wallpaper for them. It was a very nice business. I loved it because it was physical exercise. It was creative, artistic. You got to meet really nice people. You saw different homes and how people lived, and it was a nice. While I was wallpapering, I could meditate and just um, relax and enjoy it. So I did that till 2014. Then in 2014, I was told to go tell everybody how it works, and to um, just do my thing, and so that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of seeing you, and I think it was maybe back in 2018 or so. I saw you on a program, and you were shining light on a soul who had, come through a tough time, and you were really sharing about how, we are so much more than our circumstances. And
Yeah,
I just remember the love and respect and compassion that you were expressing on that video that I had seen. And it touched me deeply because I felt that you were really representing something that was in your very own heart and soul. And you were being very, I felt courageous too, because of the climate of the times too, in your area there in South Africa, and all the different squabbles and disagreements and things that the people of different races and different regions and all of that, and you were just this very beautiful, loving, compassionate presence, and so
thank you.
yeah, it really impacted me. Yeah.
Yeah, because the soul's made up of two important energies. The one is our electro energy, the other one's magnetic energy. And electro energy is information and our beliefs and thoughts and imagination and so on. And the magnetic energy is our emotions. And when I started to wake up, when I was told this and how it works, I realized that I didn't actually feel my emotions. I thought my emotions. So I was conditioned to respond in certain ways to certain circumstances by my mind. So I wasn't really feeling my emotions. I was telling my emotions what to feel. In other words, I was controlling my emotions, and I wasn't allowing myself to feel my emotions. And so I kind of let go of that notion and started to listen to my emotions, to understand them and to feel them better. Because in the electromagnetic universe, the magnetic waves is called the wave carrier. The wave carrier carries the information. And when uh, when your magnetic waves are in coherence with your sound waves, sorry, when your emotions are in coherence with your thoughts, you carry that information through the universe. So those are kind of little, spiritual stuff that I kind of learned over the years,
But
and
Colin,
that's
that's actually so important. I mean, that little tidbit right there, if it is put into conscious practice by anyone, it will
yeah,
change their world
yeah,
and the entire world that we experience. Because what you're saying is the coherence, the alignment of one's emotions and feelings with their thoughts, it brings it back into a kind of wholeness, a soulful wholeness. And that can be carried through the entire universe in harmony. It's like, rainbows and rainbows of beauty and information and love and light, and right. And what we have, as you were speaking about, what humanity is dealing with, a lot of it, I feel like, is we were conditioned to go into states of so-called comfort because we are constantly being bombarded with things to be fearful about. So people are very uncomfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I continue to go back to is, if you're uncomfortable, good, get uncomfortable. Because it's only when we're uncomfortable that something new can come into our experience, because we're actually more alert, more
Yeah.
aware. To be uncomfortable is actually a blessing. And so many things in the external world are causing people the opportunity to be uncomfortable, which is an opportunity to feel. It's an opportunity to think new, and to just experience oneself in a new way. And so I do feel that it's at some points it's a little disheartening to see how much fear and apathy and all this that it can continue, and the level of the cognitive dissonance, it can be disheartening at times. But I have this genuine knowing that the universe is love, and this love is always emanating, and it is always there, and there's just no way that we are not going to be bombarded, flooded, and evolved by this love, no matter what it looks like, and no matter how fearful or lost in cognitive dissonance the larger aspects of humanity may seem. I just feel it in my entire being that this alignment, and as you say, this coherence of our feelings and our heart and our thought, it's happening. It is happening, and it's happening more and more and more. And those of us who are willing to feel and to heal and to be and to express, we attract more and more of those experiences and those people to our lives, and that grows and grows and ripples and ripples.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a saying out there on social media that nothing can stop what's going to come. And I feel that way. Well, I don't feel that way, I know that way.
Yes.
We are in an ascension cycle, and like, the universe dragged me kicking and screaming out of my complacency and out of my dogmatic, lifestyle. I think that's going to happen to a lot of people. They're going to wake up as I woke up, because in 2003 I was not a candidate for being a guru or a consciousness leader. I was pretty stuck in a very carnal lifestyle, and knew nothing about science, knew nothing about the universe, didn't care about my health, didn't care about very much, in fact, except sex, drugs, and rock and roll and partying and having a good time. So I'm always encouraged that if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody, because all they have to do is have the courage to face it, to face the change that's going to come, and be willing to go through it, because it's the most rewarding journey that anyone can ever have, is to discover oneself and to discover that everything is God. Everything and everyone is God. And if we become God to ourselves and God to everyone else, what a wonderful world we would live in. It's because we don't put on this mantle, we don't accept the responsibility to be like God, to be God-like. And we've got all kinds of excuses, and we're told we're sinners, and that we're all going to hell unless we accept Jesus, or unless we believe in Allah or believe in Buddha or something outside of us. There's always this external savior that's going to save us. That's not going to happen. We are the savior. I am my own savior, and the buck stops here. And if I compromise that, then I've compromised my integrity, my authenticity, and I've also compromised my God.
So well said, Colin. So well said. Yes. I mean, it's just incredible the opportunity that each and every precious soul is being given to
Yeah.
return to the knowing of their own divinity. And then to
Yeah.
be able to share and love and express that with each other.
Yeah, and unpacking all the lies that we've been told, yeah, is a process, that I had to go through, and I think everyone's gonna have
Everyone.
to discover that for themselves, and I can I can help as many people as who want to be helped, but sad thing is not many people want to be helped. They don't understand what's coming. And there are a large number of people who are in my study group, who read my posts, visit my website, and read my books, and I run a course, a 3-year course for students. It's only $9.99 a month, so it's really for free. Um, and people, if they wanted this information, they just enroll and start watching the videos where I explain the mechanics of creation, I explain the mechanics of ascension, how to master the hologram, what the hologram is, um, you know, the attitudes of mastery, how to have the right attitudes.
Yeah, so
The,
all of our listeners out there, if you're interested in connecting with Colin and learning, I have
the,
all of the information here and the direct links to go and look into his books, his courses, all of his writings. It's well worth it for those on the exploration of their soul.
yeah, I do a course on the construct of the soul, for instance, so people want to know what what is this what is this thing called a soul? It's a very tangible thing. It's something we can understand. It's not a mystery. The mystery is gone. I'm bringing this information to people, so it's no longer a mystery, and it's there. It's available. All people have to do is go find it. You know, people talk about the 7 chakras here. We don't really understand that we have 15 chakras, that we have 7 on body, and then we've got 8 off body chakras, and these chakras connecting to the earth's chakras connecting to the sun's chakras connecting to the galactic central sun, and everything in the universe is connected through energy, waves of light and sound. And if people can get that into their heads, that they're not physical beings, they're spiritual beings, they're beings of energy, and that we are eternal. We don't die. Dying is an illusion. It's a game, that's a trap that's been played. It's a trick that's been played on humanity. We are eternal beings, and we have been, and will be, and always will be. And one day we'll learn how to experience eternity in the eternal now, where there is no fear, there is no anger, there's no difficulties, everything is provided. We learn about the laws of grace in the universe, that how we live in a gracious and loving universe. And if we could just begin to accept and understand that, and my courses really teach how it works, because I'm a how-to kind of guy. If someone showed me something, I would take it apart and I want to know how it worked. So the questions are asked, well, how does this work? How does that work? How does this work? So if they started telling me about the soul, I said, well, what is the soul? How does it work? How does this connect to that? What is frequency? What are the different frequencies? and how do frequencies relate to each other, and it's people like Nikola Tesla understood this stuff, and that's how he came up with all these inventions, the coil, the radio, the remote controlled boats and remote controlling of things. He just used the science of the waves, you know.
Yeah. Well,
And people
Colin,
don't, the,
it's incredible the breadth of knowledge and wisdom that you carry and that you share, and all because of your willingness to be open and receptive and to step beyond the fears that you had and your programming and indoctrinations, and to truly surrender to the journey of
yeah,
your soul and provide that as a gift for all of humanity. And
yeah,
I'm so deeply grateful, and I've enjoyed having you here on our podcast today. I hope we'll come back for another visit
I sure
sometime
will.
soon. Um, Thank you, everyone, for joining us with this beautiful man, Colin Joe Byrne. I hope that you will get to know him and check out his links in the description here. And we look forward to having you back soon, Colin Joe Byrne. Thank
Thank
you.
you. It's been wonderful to be with you. Thanks.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye bye.